Hi, everybody. I guess we've got people joining here. Well, while people are joining, I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself and TaxCell Resources. Then we'll go ahead and get started. But I guess I entered the space 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. Actually was flipping houses as a side project at the time, right before, I'll call it, the housing bust, and I certainly wasn't spared like so many others. I actually got upside down on a property. Luckily, it wasn't my entire livelihood, but I did. The property happened to be in Montana, and then Montana has this weird process, or at least it did at the time. I think they still do, where every potential investor has to send a notice to you that you might have a tax lien sold on your property. So anyway, I got pieces of mail from, I don't know, 15, 20 different groups, talking about how I'm going to have this tax lien put on my property. I might lose the property over time, and basically opened my eyes that why this whole industry even existed. Now I basically went out and bought a book. I can't remember the name of the book. Call it A Tax Sale for Dummies, and really realize that this industry is a real thing. And then put a small fund together, if you want to call it that. Certainly wasn't huge. It was more friends, family money, and started buying tax liens in a couple states, mainly Montana and Wyoming. Now, this is in 2008, and I was at a conference in 2009, 2010, and had a friend suggest, hey, this database that you built. I take a step back. Part of that process was I built a website that we're using for internal purposes, just to monitor upcoming auctions and try to collect lists. That did not exist. That's a very simple thing, did not exist back then. And also, at least I hadn't heard of, or maybe it was around Google Drive, OneDrive, all these nice online document sharing tools didn't exist other than email. And so I built this database. It was called Tax Lien Database, to try and share that information internally. And it was suggested at a conference in 2009, 2010, hey, maybe you should make that database open to the public, charge a subscription, and maybe you'll, offset some of your research expenses. And that's actually what we ended up doing, and rebranded that as TaxCell Resources in 2010. And that's how really TaxCell Resources was born. I'm going to mention this only because it popped up there. If you have questions at any point throughout this process, please do not be shy. There's a chat window over there, and there's actually a couple folks on from my team that are monitoring that. Holly Andrazek is one. You might hear from Rachel. Rachel's actually my sister as well on there. And so feel free to ask questions. They'll answer as best they can in the chat. I'm definitely going to keep a look or a lookout on that, and keep tabs of that. And then we should have time at the end to go through that in detail and answer any questions that Holly and Rachel weren't able to in writing. So as questions pop up in your head, please share. Typically, everyone benefits from sharing. So back to timeline. So in 2010, TaxCell Resources was born, and we were basically a service that monitored upcoming auctions and then collected auction lists and put it in a nice Excel format. That's really how we got started. We still do that today. We now monitor more than 8,000 auctions a year, and about 1.2 to 1.5 million different properties that go up for tax lien or tax deed auction on an annual basis. Now we've since expanded that service into what is now our research platform, right? So if you're wanting to underwrite and look at parcels in more detail, and not just a list of parcel numbers, that's what our research platform is. We also have a portfolio management tool. So if you're buying tax liens on a large scale, the portfolio management tool helps you keep track of that, especially if you've got a team of folks and you're investing I'll say millions of dollars and tens of thousands of liens across multiple states. That becomes a very large task. Right now, I think there's like $2.5 billion worth of tax liens being managed on that platform. So it's a very robust tool. It's also not for everybody. I will be the first to tell you, if you're just getting started, then Excel does a wonderful things and is much less expensive. So don't make the transition until you need to. You might not hear that from many people trying to sell their platform, but I guess I'll be honest. So this is, all right. So 2015, we rolled out the management platform. We now also have a capital partnership program or financing programs. And so, you can check any of that out on our website, taxsaleresources.com. And so if you're looking for capital to buy tax deeds, specifically tax deeds, not so much tax liens, then we can help in that regard, where banks, as you'll probably find, don't. And we're going to talk about our financing programs in much more detail in a future webinar. So I won't go into that in detail today, but those are our other services that we provide. Now to catch us up, basically, that's 2023. We've been at this business for over almost coming up 15 plus years. It kind of amassed an immense amount of data, and have lots of, I like to think, very happy customers, but new folks being introduced to the space all the time. And this is really geared for you, whether you're new to the space or new to us, Tax Sale Resources. I want to show you a little bit of at least the research platform today, which is by far the most widely used program or software that we have. So I think we've got enough folks. We might as well go ahead and get started. So what is it that draws us all to tax sale investing, right? I think by far the number one reason is the financial freedom that you can get from being involved in this space, because of real estate, and real estate being the number one generator of millionaires, at least in this country. That possibility is definitely the number one driver. And then for a subset of us, me included in this, is really helping blighted communities, right? And then if you haven't seen a tax sale property, you're going to get well versed in them if you do decide to continue with this space, because these are typically not the best properties on the block. They do happen, but more likely than not, these are rough properties that have been abandoned for one reason or another. And I'd say in most cases are the worst house on the street and need a lot of TLC. And I've heard many stories of tax sale investors. They go in, they buy these properties, they turn around and remodel the property, make it the most beautiful house on the block, and neighbors love them for it. The community loves them for it. And it's a very gratifying feeling, to get when you get that sort of gratification from the community. And there's a tertiary reason, at least for me, is I call it daily satisfaction of real estate, because things are changing every day. You're getting new challenges, and it's a very satisfying market or business to be in when you get to tackle those problems and see progress on a daily basis, versus maybe banging your head against the wall at a desk job every day doing the exact same thing. So why doesn't everybody do it? Well, obviously there's some roadblocks. And what are some of those more common roadblocks? Well, one is, it's hard and takes effort. Another one is, researching properties, takes a lot of time. So let's maybe dive into those two main roadblocks. First one being, it's hard, takes effort. Well, quite frankly, it is hard. And it does take effort. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it. And if everybody were doing it, you wouldn't be making any money. So that is not something that's going to change. So if you're looking for something easy, maybe look elsewhere. If you're looking for something hard, gratifying, and a niche that you can still make good money doing, then you found the right place. So onward. Okay. I'm not one that's going to make you sit here to the very end till you get to know what we're offering y'all for joining us today. Basically, the standard, I'll say, trial period is $1.99 for a week. We're actually going to extend that for you here today to be $1.99 for the first full month for anybody that's attending. And basically, you should automatically, if you haven't already, be receiving an email with an invite to accept that. This isn't an offer you can go find online. You have to be invited to it. and you should be seeing an email in your inbox. Looks very similar to this, coming from Tax Law Resources, and please review your account invitation. If it's not in your inbox, check your spam. That does happen on occasion. It should have this. All you got to do is click this accept invitation button. It'll walk you through setting up your account, and you'll automatically have that first month for $1.99 as opposed to just the first week. So that's our first thank you. If you don't have that email in your inbox or can't find it in your spam, definitely reach out to us. There's certain scenarios where you might not get that email, and we can take care of it. So all you got to do is reach out to us. Email us at support@taxlawresources.com, or give us a call. We actually have real people here answering the phone, and that's 877-982-9725. Again, feel free to call us. We do have real people. I'll pause here just for anybody that wants to write that down. And I guess give us a few minutes. If you don't have that invite right this second, we do have like 70 or so that we need to send out. So give us, 10, 15 minutes or so, and then check back. And if you don't have it, in 15, 20 minutes from now, then certainly reach out to us if you don't have it by then. But majority of you should have an email by then. Also, anybody that does activate their account, you'll get an additional 500 what we call non-expiring parcel views. So as long as you have an active account, those will be there for you to use. You get an additional 10 over-the-counter lists, an additional 10 sale results files. We'll get into what exactly those are here shortly. But to give you an idea, typically, at least on our standard tier, you get I think less than 100 parcels a month, and we'll give you 500 of those for just attending today. If you want to view those, which everyone should automatically have those added as well, if you do become active, but you can see those, you go up to your name, click settings, and there's a few fields here. You should see that 500 populated. And if you don't, reach out to us, say you attended today's webinar about research, you were told you're going to get these things, you don't, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. Anyway, sorry for the pause there. Let's get back to, I guess, and if you all want to hop off, right, because you've got what you're looking for, go for it. I won't make you stick around. Hopefully, I'm going to go through some kind of tips and features that I think are underutilized, that have a lot of value and a lot of time-saving components to it. And so, if you do have time, stick around, and we'll start diving into some of that. All right, so back to the roadblocks. Obviously, it's hard. Nothing we can do about that. It is hard. We're making it slightly easier, right? But at the end of the day, you can't just pick a property and go buy it, because there's a lot you can. I'll correct myself. You can do that, but there's a lot of pitfalls and issues you might run into if that's your approach. There's some homework you got to do on every property. You must do your due diligence. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're buying, and that just will ensure you're not losing your money at the end of the day. So I'm going to take a quick step back up here. For those that want this for attending today, it isn't automatic. I apologize. You actually have to go out and request it. And the way you do that is on the right, there's a little shopping cart looking thing. There should be a red dot called offers. Click that on the side of your screen. It should show the same thing, 500 non-expiring credits, 10 free over-the-counter, 10 free results, and get your free credits button. Go ahead and click offers, click that. It'll be a form online you got to fill out. And basically, it's going to result in a phone call, whether you set up a time or we'll reach out to you. Either way works. We'll have that phone call, and then we'll be able to add those parcels to your account. So feel free to do that now. You can certainly listen in the background. You can do it later. That offer will stay up the whole time. But click that button, fill out the form, and somebody will reach out to you and have that conversation. Okay, so back to roadblocks, right? Researching properties takes too much time. And that's really where our research platform shines. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into that. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today is I call old school versus new school, right? Old school being how many folks were taught, and I think are still being taught today, on how doing research parcel by parcel on an auction list, versus using a platform like ours to do that same effort in a few minutes, which used to take hours or days. We're going to go through how you find auctions, some property details, all the additional reports that are available on our platform, some how you can use our platform to actually do underwriting, take notes. There's a piece in there we call extra attributes. Again, I'll explain what all that means. And then we have a really cool feature that allows you to search nationwide or statewide and actually underwrite for very specific property types on a nationwide scale. It's pretty incredible. So if you stick around, we'll get to that as well. So old school way versus new school way. Now, go ahead and I'll log out just so you guys can all see. Now, when you log into our platform, right, prior to Tax Sale Resources being around, this is what you had to do, right? And I think many people are still taught this way. You pick out counties that you're interested in. You call the county department, which is the treasurer, tax collector, sheriff in some states. You find out who the right person to talk to is. You ask them, if you get them on the phone, when the next upcoming auction is. Many times it's 9 months from now or they don't know. And so you have to kind of keep track of that. Eventually, you get within the time period where they now have an auction list. You can request that auction list. It might be online. There's actually more and more auctions online these days. And then they'll send you a list or point you in the direction to download a list. And that list can come in many different formats. It can come from, and that list is what we call the raw list throughout the platform. It is what the county sends you. That can come from anywhere from what is a nice Excel, well formatted, maybe even lots of data in that list. And there's many auctions sites. Florida, I know, has quite a few of them where they give a pretty decent amount of data, and that's nice. But there's also the opposite end of the spectrum, where like New Jersey is actually done at the municipality level instead of the county, and there's still some small towns or small townships in New Jersey that literally fax a list or a copy of the newspaper, and it's a list of parcel numbers, and that's it, right? That's the starting point. That is how that's the way you found just simple things like the upcoming auction date and the auction list, 10 years ago before we came around. Now, and that's what I would call the old school way, and now you can go on to our website and download lists all day long. We've done that piece of the puzzle for you already. We have a whole team of folks that call. There's actually 5,000 different jurisdictions out there. So 3,200 or so counties. There's actually several cities. And anyway, over 8,000 auctions that we collect on a yearly basis. And everything that's on here are going to be upcoming auctions. Now right now there's 510 auctions in our database with data as of today, right? So just imagine calling yourself 510 different counties, collecting 510 different lists, right? That simple step starts to seem like a big project, right? You can actually look and see, that's 510 auctions with data, right? And we process data roughly 4 weeks before the auction. That seems to be a happy medium of a lot of redemptions taking place, right? Still enough time to do your research and make decisions. And prior to that 4 weeks, we don't process anything because the list shrinks so much in that time period. So, but if you look at all the auctions we're tracking right now, there's roughly 780 auctions that we're tracking at the moment, and about 510 of those have data. The other piece of the old school way would be, you got this list, right? Now what do? You got to go find data on that property. Some of it might have been in Excel, but typically it's not enough. You need to go find more, and that more can be everything. And it could be, hey, I just want to know if there's a mortgage on that property or not. But the short answer is you needed to do additional research. And the old school way was take that parcel number, go to the assessor's site, plug in that parcel number, pull up the information that's available. If you're really savvy, you might have a scraper that pulls the information you need, populates a spreadsheet, or like most people, you're doing it by hand, copying and pasting the information into a spreadsheet, and ultimately trying to make decisions as you're looking at properties one by one. Now doing that for 15, 20 properties in a auction is not bad. Doing it for 50 properties is somewhat of a chore, but not horrible. Can you imagine doing that for tens of thousands of properties? Or in the case of Cook County, which is Chicago, Illinois, which is the largest tax lien auction, they regularly have over 50,000 different parcel numbers or parcels going up for auction. That becomes a daunting task, right? And you can imagine trying to filter down to at the end of the day, you're not going to want to buy any of those. There's going to be a subset, and filtering that 50,000 down even to 5,000 is going to be a massive undertaking, or used to be a massive undertaking. And that's exactly what you don't have to do anymore with what I call the new school way. So as far as finding auctions, we'll start with that. There's some basic criteria you can apply, right? There's all sorts of auctions going on, from deed versus lien, redeemable deed. Are they live? Are they online? What kind of auction procedures there are, right? So if you know what you're after, right? If you know you're after deed auctions, right? You can filter that down, right? If you know you're not going to be able to go to live auctions, they got to be online, you can say, I only want to look at the online auctions, right? And then you can say, okay, parcel or auctions with one parcel. Yeah, that's hard. There's I can tell you an auction in Miami-Dade with one parcel is going to have a lot of competition. So is that worth going to? Probably not. Manatee, probably not. So look for auctions that have more parcels. St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana, that has quite a few. That's an interesting one. Let's see if there's any in other states coming up. Palm Beach. Let's see, Cuyahoga, Ohio. I'm actually located in Ohio. So let's play with this one. This will be kind of a fun one. Now, you used to get the auction list, right? Call Chris Murray, right, at this number, get the auction list, and then look it up. Now you just click on this nice little button, and now you've got all the parcels, and you're going to have all sorts of data you can look at. The cool part about this program is you are able to filter this down based on any of the 110 different criteria. And the biggest question I get is, well, I only get 150 parcels. That's not very many. Well, if you know what you're after, 150 parcels is a lot. You can apply your criteria across tens of thousands of parcels and only find the 100 or so that actually meet your criteria. That's the cool thing. And you look at those 100 and you only use up 100 parcel views. That's a pretty nifty trick. So from here, once you're in here, right, you can apply these filters. And so you can say, okay, this auction, I think, had 60 some properties. You can apply, I want to look at those that are only, let's say, single family residential, maybe duplex, right? Go through, we'll just narrow it down based on those two things, right? So out of those 65, how many meet that criteria, right? It's going to think for a little bit, and there's still quite a few, but now out of that 65, you're down to maybe 20, 25, right? And if you want to get really specific, you can say, I'm after really good properties, so I want those with a market value of greater than, let's say, 200,000. Oh, I was a little too specific, so let's back that off. All right, so now we're down to 3, right? I've quickly filtered, I don't know if you guys took note, would that take me a minute and a half? I went through and underwrote essentially those 65 parcels and found the 3 that meet my criteria. Now I can click on them and look at a lot more detail. I can look at all of that information that I was filtering on, right? From, property characteristics, right? Year it was built, lot size, building. If you're familiar with Zillow, right, this is a lot of data that you can find there. Nice thing is you don't have to go back and forth between platforms. We're going to come back to data reports, right? There's a street view. The nice thing about street view I like to point out is it tells you when that picture was taken, right? And this is key, right? This was taken in July of 22. That's actually fairly recent. But in most cases, this picture is very, very old, years old. And if you don't know this already, you're going to quickly learn, don't trust the picture that Google puts there for tax sale properties. A lot can change in 5 years. You need to get a picture that's recent, whether you go take it yourself or hire somebody local to go take it. Now, if you want to use a platform, you can do it for that. But you can at least see when that picture was taken to get a rough estimate. You might get lucky and find one that was taken in the last 30 days. That would be a lot better than one that was taken 10 years ago. Other information you can get. So any other information that was on the auction list from the county will be here in what we call property additional info. This particular county doesn't have a whole lot on their list versus a list in Florida might have a whole lot more data that the county is providing on their list. We translate that all the way through so you can see that here as well. So stuff like, okay, on this property is a $5,000 deposit. The next property in Cuyahoga might have a $10,000 deposit. It might vary, right? Property valuation. So there's the tax amount, right? How much were taxes last year? There's the assessed value and market value, which in some states or counties, those are identical. In other states, this is a percentage of that. I don't know the exact calculation in every county, but we provide both. And these are both from the county, right? County provided market value, county provided assessed value. That is different from MLS value or AVMs, which we'll get to later as well. There's information of whether this property is sold in the past. So this property, sold back in 2011 for $70,000. That's a pretty important piece of information. Does it have any more mortgages or loans on the property? Right. This one in particular does not. But if there were, there would be that populated. In environmental hazard and flood information. Right. There's no environmental hazard on this one. The risk is low. There's a minimal flood zone risk as well. But I can tell you in places in Florida, right, or in Louisiana, like these are going to be things that you look at in a lot more detail. Like what is my risk on this property from an environmental hazard, right? Does it have a past history of being a crack house, for example, or meth is probably a better way and is considered a hazard? Or is there a gas station next door that I got to worry about? That's in there. It actually even goes as far as to say, is this parcel itself been in a tax sale? And searching our database, since we've been doing this for 13 years, it's searching our database to see if this particular parcel has gone to auction in the past. It's going to think away. It did. It made it to auction back in 2021. This was the opening bid, and it won at $67,000. So the fact that it's back up for auction might make you think twice of why. Why is it at auction again? Something to think about. If it hasn't been to auction, maybe that's good. Now, here's where the platform can get really cool is it goes out and says, okay, similar tax or similar parcels, right, in the county. Now it's saying, right, for properties with this same type of county land use code or standardized land use code, what is stuff selling for? And these are recent tax sale comps, right? Opening bid amount, winning bid amount, right? What is that selling for as a percentage of market value, right? Here's the opening bid. Here's what's up, right? So you can see stuff is selling for, upwards of 80, 90% of market value. Now we can get even more granular and say for the zip code, right? Now you're narrowing it down to only those within this 44118 zip code, right? What is stuff selling for? Well, I guess it's a little less competitive, 50, 60, 70% of market value, right? Now you can go back up to your market value section up here and say, okay, my market value is 143,000. If I'm gonna, if average is 70% of that, right? Am I willing to spend $100,000 on this property? Do I have capital to spend $100,000 on this capital, right, or more? If the answer is no, then you might quickly say this might not be a property you should pursue. If the answer is yes, or I could spend more, great, you might get a hold of it. So that's a component that you can't get anywhere else that our platform has. And these are all the property details that you get. Now, you kind of already should have known, right, from the previous display of upcoming auction details. But at the end of the day, you need to know when the auction is going on, where it is. This happens to be an online auction. Here's how you can register. Here's the date. It's on the 22nd. You got 7 days. You might want to act fast if that's one that you're wanting to move forward with. And then we'll get to this later, but if there's images or documents you want to store as part of your underwriting process, which I'm going to talk about over here, you can upload that here. This can be your tool that you store all of your data. You don't have to have a separate file management system that helps you make those decisions. Because typically what happens is you go out, you take pictures, you need those, right, to reference. And then you're going to make decisions based on that, right? You're going to try to come up with a value. You're going to try to come up with a maximum bid, right? And I'm going to have an opinion of this property, and I'm going to put those in there. And then there's going to be some notes. I can also tag these things. That helps me come back to them, right? I want to keep this one. It seems pretty good. I give it a grade B. Whatever your definition of B is, up to you. I'm going to put it in group 1 because it happens to be in this zip code, and I want to keep things grouped together for future reference. Now, of those 3 properties, I don't have to go back and start over. Just click over. It's going to go to the next one that met my criteria, and we'll look at this one, right? Same process. Does it, what does the value look like? 195. So unless I'm willing to bid, 150, opening bid's 350 on this one. That's really high. And does that make sense? I don't know, right? You got to go look at the market value. Shaker Heights, having to know the area, I'd say county market value might be behind. This value might not be too crazy, right? So maybe look at that. But if I didn't know that, I'd say, ooh, the starting bid on that's way more than what I think is realistic. So this is a remove. I'm not interested in that one. Let's go on to the next one. This is the third one, right? Okay, 70%, 108,000. So am I willing to bid 70? Opening bid's 41. Property looks pretty decent for now. I'm going to say this is a keep, and so forth. Make my notes, or put in my bids and make my notes. And that's how you can use the system to quickly underwrite this auction, right? There's 65, I narrow down to 3. I can go on to the next auction. I still have 147 other parcels I can go look at and make this determination and allow me to really do this at scale. A few years ago, doing this at scale was very hard. And that's kind of where the platform shines. Well, let's take a quick note of where we're at. We've gone through a little bit of our old school versus new school, how to find auctions. We talked about the property details, all the information there. Let's go look at additional property reports and the extra attributes real quick. I'll just pull up this one property that we looked at. And there are, there we go. So there's things that the system does, right? And I can tell you because the auction is only a week away. It only lets you order things that can be done in time. Right now, you can only order a property scope report. I'm going to go find another parcel that allows you to look at all of them. And that's because the other things can't be done in time. We get this question quite a bit. That's why I'm addressing it. But if the report isn't able to be ordered, that means it can't be done in time, all right? So you're going to have to look at doing those things earlier. Those reports are a title search report, a property inspection, a property scope report, right? So that in mind, let's go find an auction that's a little further out in the future, and we'll find a parcel that we can actually look at those examples. This allows you to see how the tool can work in action. So we were looking at deed auctions, right? We're looking at them online. We need those auctions to be, let's say at least, 10 days out. Well, let's say 14 days out, right? All right, now we've got some in Florida. Right, here's 29 parcels. Sale date's the 20th of December. That's plenty of time. We got single family home, opening bid, 14,000. And now you can see the different reports that you can purchase. The property scope, we'll start with the property scope report. This is everything that you just looked at plus more, right? It's going to have some market data in there. It's going to have comp data in there, right? So if you want to know MLS comps, you'll be able to see this as well. I'm going to load the others examples so we can look at them all a little quicker. Title search, if you're not familiar with that, we're going to look at that. Property inspection, and then a property valuation report, which is kind of asking us what we think the property is worth. So we'll start with the property scope, right? A lot of this looks familiar, right? Who the parcel details, right? Current owner information, legal description, valuation, that all looks pretty familiar. New things are this AVM and MLS comps, right? So what does the MLS think this property is worth? The county market value is 126. Based on comps, it's saying it's worth anywhere from 125 to 190, right? So that helps you determine the difference between county value and what this, real value might be. Now, keep in mind, tax sale properties aren't always like the neighbors. So this is a data point. I'm not going to tell you that the property is worth $190,000. You need to do that research to find it. But if you want to look at comps, as everybody should, look at what comps are selling for. This is how you can do that. Here's the current listings. Here's recent sales. Which of what category matters most to you? You can make that determination. Where they are relative to the subject property will be in there. Market conditions, right? Is value going up? Is it going down? How long is stuff staying on the market? Is there an HOA on the lien on the property, which can get real handy in South Carolina and areas like Florida as well, knowing, because those are liens that don't expire as part of the tax sale foreclosure. They stick there, right? Any other liens and mortgage on the property? This one happens to have a bunch, right? Judgments on the current owner, transaction history of that property, how many times it sold, how much it sold for, so you can kind of see over time what that looked like. Environmental report, right? We said this particular property was a high, right? Not because it was a hazard, but it looks like there's a hazard nearby, maybe a meth house, I don't know. Right? Because of that, then the risk is high. It's something to look at. Doesn't mean avoid it, just do your research. And then we talked about the parcel's history from a tax deed sale and a tax lien sale. That's all that is included in the property scope report. The next one we talked about was the title search. There we go. And the title search is not done by us, right? It's done by DataTrace, which is a First American company. The nice thing is we're plugged in. You have to be able to order at volume to utilize DataTrace's platform. And if you can, then you can get title searches for a great price, right? If you've ordered these from a title company, they probably cost $200 to $300 a piece. Through the platform, because we can buy at volume and get those type of discounts. We're buying them, or you're buying them for, I think Florida's maybe $55 for most of Florida, on up to maybe the middle of nowhere in West Virginia or Kentucky might be a couple $100, but that couple $100 in the local title company would probably be a $500 title search. So it's a much better price, right? And you can, all the information you would typically get in a title search, whether that county's data is online or not, right? You can order this. You can order this title search, right? So if you want that type of detail. The next thing that we were talking about is the property inspection. Now, I mentioned this before. You need to go find out what the status of that property is today, right? Google Street View is good. Google Street View isn't always recent or accurate. Sorry. You can order inspection through our system, right? I'll put it this way. If you're local or going to be local, putting your own eyes on that property is always going to be the most valuable. And I would always recommend doing it yourself if you can. If you're not local or don't plan on being local because it's an online auction like this one, then you can get somebody to do that inspection for you. Now, you can go find somebody to do that for you by yourself, or you order it through the system. We utilize a service that does these typically for insurance purposes, right? So there's a disaster, hurricane in Florida. Insurance companies hire this group to go do those inspections immediately following that disaster, and they get an assessment of what that disaster looks like. Now, why does that matter? Well, the short answer is because this inspection person is used to doing it on a very quick timeline, right? It's not, I'll get to it next week. It's you order today, 48 hours from now, you get a nice little report and some pictures of what this property looks like as of today. Is that structure standing? Is it been demoed? Is it a vacant lot now, right? You can get all of those answers from this property inspection. And these run anywhere from $45 to, I think, $65 a property. And so, if you want to do that and you can't be local, this is an option for you to do that and still get that same level of research, which I extremely and highly recommend. If you're buying a tax deed for multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars, you better put eyes on it. You can get burned real fast if you don't. And the last one is the due diligence report. And this is, if you want to know what we would value that property for, and this will come in later, where if you're using our capital program, one of our capital partnership programs, right? You want to know what we value that property for, you can order that. Now, this is not cheap, right? This is $190 because we are getting all of those things. We are doing the property scope report. We're getting that inspection. We are looking at those comps, and we are telling you, based on all of that data, here's how us, as a human in the loop, would recommend the property of that value to be. This particular example is a really nice property at 458K, right? But if we think it's worth 30K, we'll put that, right? Regardless of what comps say, regardless of what AVM say, if we look at that property and it looks like it's about ready to fall over, we're not going to tell you it's worth $500,000, right? That's the nice thing about the due diligence report. If you want somebody else to give you an opinion, that's what the due diligence report is for. And those are the different types of reports that you can order through the system if you want that type of information. Now, let's talk about, I touched on it, but we'll talk about the underwriting and extra attributes, right? And that's where we're talking about this stuff. I didn't mention this before, but these are extra attributes, right? And you can go in here in your settings and change those. That's the nice thing. It's a flexible system. You don't have to fit your square peg in a round hole, right? You go to settings, right? Up here, settings, there's little extra attributes, and you can make them whatever you want them to be. You can say, I want this one to be my third-party value, right? And I want that to be a currency. Formulas I'm not going to get into because that's more of an advanced feature. You can actually make these where they have calculations based on other things. A common calculation is LTV, lean to value, right? How much is the opening bid on that if you're a lien buyer versus the market value? We can do that calculation in the system and show that to you. I'm not going to do that as an example, right? But that has a capability. You can add as many of these extra attributes as you want. So if you go back and find that property again, and we'll say, okay, I want to go look at that property out in the future. Again, I'm looking for deed sales. I'm looking, well, actually, I'll show you something else because we're going to look at the nationwide search anyway. I want to look at those that I have tagged as keep. Right? I can pull all those up, right? These are things and examples I've been looking at over the last couple of weeks, right? That one in Cuyahoga, right? Here's that one, right? Now, what you notice right here is the third-party value I just added, right? I can add more extra attributes, right? Whatever information you want to capture here, you can include, right? So I want this, my internal value of this is 10,000. I want my max bid to be, 5,000. This is obviously not real, representative of this particular property, but my opinion, I like it. Third-party value. Somebody else said it was worth, 20,000. Great. Some more notes. Now this is in the system. So only you, it's not available to anybody else, but you can reference back to this next time you see the property. If you uploaded a document, that would also be there. So pictures, that sort of thing. You can put all of that in this platform. So as you go through properties and you come back to it, you've got those notes. You don't have to try and remember what you thought of that particular property. See, here's those notes. The other nice thing is when you get to this, you can export these properties. All of those notes that you're taking in the system will now be in that export. We'll open that up so you can see it. Where'd it go? There we go. So all the properties that I've looked at are now in a nice Excel format. So if you prefer to use Excel to narrow properties down even further, you can do that within the system. And all those notes that I took, right, including all the extra attributes that I just added are in this export. You can now do all of this outside of this system and actually import, which is what I consider an advanced feature that we're not going to dive into in more detail today, but you can do that all in the system. And so this becomes an underwriting and workflow management tool, which is pretty incredible. And that kind of leads us to the last bit that I want to touch on, which is a really cool, powerful feature, right? Typically, you log in, and what people are typically used to doing is looking at auctions, right? One auction at a time. Look at all the parcels in that auction. And you had to do it that way until now. And what we do is we aggregate all this data in a central database. And if instead of auctions, you go up here to search, it allows you to do lots of things like I showed you a little bit ago, like narrow it down based on tag, right? I want to look at those that I liked from before. The other thing that you can do is if you have a very, very specific niche of properties you're searching for, you can do this search on a nationwide scale. This functionality is really cool because you couldn't even do this a couple of years ago, right? Let's say, for example, I am a commercial real estate investor, right? I don't care about vacant land. I don't care about single family residential. The reality is there's very few commercial properties that are going up for auction in a certain area. So if I try to do this auction by auction, I'll probably give up. But if I do this on a nationwide scale and I say, okay, I'm looking for deeds, right? I'm a deed guy. I want deeds and maybe redeemable deeds. I want to look for commercial properties. And there's lots of different types. We'll say general, I don't know what showroom necessarily is, general, right? Let's just see based on that how many properties there are. Right, so out of 44,000 parcels in the system, I just narrowed it down to 265. Now I can say, okay, that's quite a few, but maybe I can look at it in even more detail and say, I only want those that have maybe a county market value. That's just improved. Total market value greater than or equal to 500,000. Let's see if any actually exist. So now I'm down to less than 100, right? I can get even more specific and say how much value is out there. Let's say 700,000. I'm really after the nice properties. There's still quite a few, right? I really only want properties that are deed. I don't want to deal with the redemption period at all. Now, I haven't used any of my parcel views yet. Keep that in mind. All right, now out of my 44,000 plus parcels, I just found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 commercial properties that might fit my criteria. And this is where it gets kind of fun because you could never do this a couple years ago. Right now, I can look at this quickly. Right, I can say, oh, that one might be a keep. Right, let me go look at the next one. That one looks like a legitimate commercial property. This one looks like I don't know, maybe junkyard-ish type of heavy equipment. That one's a no, right? Look at the next one. This looks like a nice commercial property. Let's keep that one. That's a church and a barbecue joint. This is, it's zoned as commercial, but looks a little rough. So that's a no, right? And I just looked. Oh, here's a strip mall type of area. Maybe that's a keep. I just sifted through 44,000 parcels, found the roughly 6 that might have potential, narrowed that down to the 3 or 4 that do look like decent, and researching further. Would that take me? A minute and a half, 2 minutes? And that's really the power of what the research tool can do if you utilize it. Unfortunately, not many people utilize this capacity of it, but that's what today is for you guys to learn how to use it the right way, or use it to its full extent is probably a better way to put it. So that's the nationwide search functionality, and I guess the save search piece is if this is something you want to do on a regular basis, you can now say, okay, this is Brian's commercial. Right. And now every time I come in here, I don't have to put in all of that criteria every time. It's going to save it. All I got to do is press this little button, press Brian commercial, and it's going to tell me the 5 that actually meet that next time I'm in here. That's the save search. The other cool thing about save search is instead of having to log in and do this every week, I can have it email me and say, I want this to email me every week. Right. Now I'm going to get an email that says you got 5 properties this week, Brian, that you haven't looked at. That's the cool part. So that's the save search. So that's really the main functionality I wanted to talk about for our research platform. There's some more advanced features. And so if you do end up becoming a member, there will have a more advanced research run through that talks about importing, exporting, talks about workflow management, talks about an inspection tool that's all built into the platform as well. If that's something you're interested in, attend that webinar, and I look forward to talking to you then as well. I'll kind of leave you with a quick note. Trey Gulledge is a good friend. He actually, he's the CEO of TaxBreak, but he was the president of the National Taxing Association as well. He told me once that he worked with a group or for a group where that was very large. It was a very large hedge fund, over $100 million, and they had a very large group of folks doing his underwriting. I think he said like 15 different people that all they did was underwrite properties and decide what to buy. He mentioned that he was able to do not quite to that level, but it's basically him and a part-time person running his new fund, and with our tools can run that fund comfortably without needing a massive amount or a massive team to support that. I took that as a huge compliment. I like to think anybody else that might want to use our tool, right? If it's something that you're looking to do on a large scale, it's a pretty powerful tool. If you don't want to take it from me, take it from Trey. I thank you all for joining us. I'm going to hop over to the questions real quick and just see the chat and see if there's anything there. Looks like it's pretty quiet from a question standpoint. Any other questions? Well, either I have a delay or nobody has any questions. Feel free to reach out to us. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach us at support@taxdealresources.com. This phone number, 877-982-9725. You can actually talk to a real person. Please, if you did attend, look for this invite. If you want to take advantage of our full month offer. And then if you do want to set up a quick meeting, again, to get to that meeting, click on the offers, which is the little shopping cart looking sign on the right of your page. Click the offers, click the get your free credits. You'll set up a quick phone call and you'll get your 500 non-expiring parcel views, your 10 OTC lists, and your 10 sale result files. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you all, or wish you all the best, and have the best of luck in your investment ventures. Let us know if you have any questions. Thank you again, and take care.